Hi there, Cheryl from Garden in the Borough, gardening here in Central Mass in my Zone 6 garden. I thought today would be fun to sort of walk around and look at some of the stuff that's looking good in the garden right now and sort of focus on looking at some of the plants that I grew from seed this springtime and added to the garden, and a couple of self-seeders, and also talk about a little garden drama that's been going on in two areas, and lastly look at some of the hydrangeas that I grow. So I have been gardening for well over, I don't know, 30, 35 years. If you add my first house, but at this house for probably about 30. And I grow hydrangea that have been around for many years. So I understand that there's a whole bunch of new hydrangeas on the market. Boy, am I tempted all the time when I see them. There are so many new reblooming hydrangeas that are being introduced by proven winners, Monrovia, all the big plant breeders are focusing on reblooming hydrangeas, and I think it's fantastic. And I would love to add more to the garden, but it's really tough. Those sort of plants have a tough time growing here in our sandy soil. There's not a lot of water retention here, and there's not a lot of goodness in the soil. Everything has to be heavily augmented. And so I tend to stick with hydrangea paniculata types, which also there's a whole bunch of new ones of, and I get tempted by. But today we'll look at some of the ones that I grow that are older varieties. And then again, like I said, some of the plants that I grow from seed. And every year I try to grow at least one or two plants from seed that I've never grown in the garden before. So you'll get to see a couple of those. And I make decisions every year about whether that plant is worth trying to grow again or saving seed again. So a couple of those you'll get to see in this little mini look around the garden on this absolutely beautiful summer day here in the Garden in the Borough. So one of the annuals I added to my garden a number of years ago is Dara, or Daucus carota. I'll put its name on the screen. And this is a Queen Anne's lace. Many of you recognize it from growing on the roadsides in a lot of places. But this is a cultivated variety that turns, and we'll look at a few others, but it turns a number of shades from dusky pink, dirty white, dusky pink, all the way to deep burgundy. And it's used a lot in cut flower arrangements. And the first time I learned of this plant is when I was doing the Slow Flower Challenge back in maybe 2015 or 2016. And this plant came up a lot in some of the conversations people were having about how to grow flowers in your own yard that you could use in floral arrangements that were, cut and come again, long blooming. And this is actually self-seeding, just like the common Queen Anne's lace. So I'll show you some other areas over the time, even though I didn't grow this one from seed this year. This has self-seeded. So I do collect seeds. I do start some and spread them around, so each garden will get some. This particular one seeded itself in here, but we'll go look at a couple others so you can see the variation of color on this plant. You can see this one, how deep of a color it is, and this is actually the ones that I cut the most, probably are the ones that have the deepest color to them. It's funny because on this same plant, so here's this really deep burgundy, almost chocolate colored one, and another one there. But growing from this same plant, there's one that's almost just white, just like the roadside Queen Anne's lace. So I have started some seeds in this garden, so I'll have it growing here. And I think maybe 3 of my other little gardens I've put them in, and we'll look at where it's cropped up there. And it's an easy weed to pull if you don't want it where it came up. This one's starting to go to seed, and I'll show you a seed head of it when we get around to the other side of the garden where it's seeded in there as well. Here's another area, and one of the first areas that I seeded with Dara when I first started growing it. And look at the size of this flower. Like a little fireworks. And I said I would show you a seed head. And there's a seed head. So I'll collect those from the plants that I think I liked the color of best and shake them around in the garden at the end of the at the end of the season. Another new for me annual from seed this year is Nicotiana. And I chose, other than one variety, I chose all Nicotiana alata, which is a night scented. So it's moth pollinated and its perfume is slight during the day and intensifies at night to attract moths. And I chose it because we spend so much time outside in the later hours of the day and at night in the summertime. And so I wanted something that would be present and noticeable then. And these are big plants. This one's Bella. Um, and I've never tried this one before. And you can see there's Dara next to it, also seeded in this garden. I've never tried this plant before because the growing directions say that it needs very rich and moist soil and enriched soil, which is not the case here. So this one's actually growing in a container where it's doing quite well. And I think I featured this in the last tour video because of how well it was doing. So when this is here hitting the end of its time, and I do this with a lot of my containers, there's sedum and other things that are late bloomers in the back, and I'll just rotate this container. But for now, we have this beautiful flowering tobacco growing here that will take us through most of the summer, I think. Another plant that I grow from seed, this one every year, this one wasn't a trial. I trialed this a number of years ago and loved it. And this is Monarda punctata. And I just think it's so funky looking. And I think it's just really, it's one of those plants that you have to stop and look at in the garden. Looks like, I don't know, stacked pineapples or something. Pollinators love this plant. It tends to seed itself in the really gravelly areas of the garden or into walkways. And easy, very, very easy when you see those seedlings in those areas to just use a soil knife or a trowel and pick them up and move them elsewhere. Sometimes it seeds itself exactly where you want it to, and sometimes you have to dig the seedlings and move them. But like I said, maybe 1 week of watering in, and they're great for the rest of the season. So that's a bee balm, Monarda punctata. All right, this flowering tobacco or Nicotiana is not open right now. I'm not sure if this is lime green or straight alata. Um, Either way, they're very happy here. I augmented the soil quite a bit before I added them in so that they would have plenty of water holding and nutrition in the soil. And I have been feeding them. I got a little heavy handed with the fertilizer. That's what that is, fertilizer burn. But the purple one has only shown up in a few of the places. And there it is. And it's very diminutive, very small, but still it's sweet. If I had known it was going to be so much smaller than the others or not as thriving, not as much, I would have planted that one in containers. But anyway, it's in the ground and they're all doing quite well. So we'll have flowering at night and the scent, because we're right in back of, again, where we spend a lot of our time, we'll get a lot of the scent drifting back there at night. While we're in this bed with that, what I think is the lime green Nicotiana, there's this tiny little flower. And I started this as a seed too from Select Seeds. And this is called tassel flower. I don't know its Latin name. I guess I didn't even look at that. But it's the plant is doing okay. And there's some more of the flowers. There's two of them in here. I think that you would need to grow this really en masse or in a certain planting combination for it to be prominent or noticeable, I guess. It really kind of gets lost, but it's cool. I thought it would look nice with all these dark flowered daylilies, and it does. There needs to be more of it. Two plants didn't cut it, but that's all that actually germinated. So, uh, next year maybe could save some seed and try again. We'll see. Jury's still out on tassel flower. This is more of the Nicotiana alata, and I think its new flowers will open this evening. These flowers are going past, but it's in here again, right next to where our pool is. And these plants are also doing very well. So from, I think, 3 packs of seeds, I had Nicotiana, Aleda, Jasmine, Bella, and the purple. I got, I don't even know, a couple dozen plants that I successfully have transplanted into the garden from what I started from seed. And some actually that are in places that aren't, they're much smaller, so they probably don't have as much goodness in the soil. So maybe they'll flower later, I don't know. But we're also going to talk about my favorite cucumber. And there's one growing back there with the Nicotiana around it. And I'm going to use the fence to trellis it up over here. Because right now there's been trumpet vine growing on the fence, but I took it out a couple of years ago, so I have this spot that I can use. But I'm going to talk about this cucumber when I go back toward the house where there's some of it that's flowering over there. All right, so here is my other area of cucumbers. And I have this in a pot, so I have it right next to water against the house. And this cucumber, and I would love to come in closer, but there's a snake that lives in this garden, and I don't want him jumping out at me. He's been hunting here. Every time I come out here, he scares the bejesus out of me. But you can see how many flowers are on this, meaning how many cucumbers there's going to be. And this is the only cucumber I grow now. I tried a whole bunch. I'm I like I like the fact that, and this is a cucumber. I should back it up and say this is a cucumber called Early Fortune. So I've tried a bunch of other cucumbers. Some I didn't like the flavor. Some I didn't like the fact that the cucumbers, by the time they're ready, they're really large. And so, it's just me that eats them. And Early Fortune has cucumbers that are very small, 4 to 5 inches. And this plant, this was started from seed on June 7th. This is July 20th. So since June 7th, seeds in pots and then transplanted on, and that's how big this cucumber has gotten. And it's a 55-day from plant to fruit. So I have it marked. I'm going to keep track this year of how long it took for the cucumbers to actually be edible and pickable. But I think 55 days is probably even too much. I think that we'll probably have some before that date. So this is, again, the only cucumber I'm growing now, which is called Early Fortune. This is another plant I grew from seed this year. And this is growing in a pot and will probably stay in a pot, even though this would be considered hardy here temperature-wise. What I've discovered, and I should say its name, this is Salvia argentea, or silver sage, and it does not like to be wet at all. So even though we have pretty dry soil and pretty sandy soil, it still suffers in winter here. So I'm unsure if I'm going to try and overwinter this somewhere or if I'm going to let it go. And I just had to pick it up from where it was because the slugs are destroying it. Slugs here love salvia. I don't know about your garden, but they certainly love it here. But I want to share this plant, even though it's not an annual, because of the leaf. And I'll try and get in so you can see how cool is that plant. Look at the hair on that. So hopefully now that this is not going to get slug damaged anymore, it's going to get some pretty big woolly leaves. And I'm going to move it out into a different spot in the garden. Like I said, you have to be careful how much water this gets. Too much water and this will rot very easily. It does not like to be wet. But this is, again, silver sage. Just grown as sort of a curiosity. I started the seeds of this in June. There's always got to be some drama in the garden, and this was yesterday's drama. This was my magnolia, my sweet bay magnolia, Magnolia virginiana, moon glow. And yesterday we had some wind. It was probably, maybe we had 25 to 30 mile-an-hour gusts occasionally, and it was breezy, but it wasn't like a storm or anything. and this tree cracked off right at the base. And I'm not sure if it had had some problems before then. I was so encouraged this year. This is the best this magnolia has ever looked. It was flowering and loving life, and I'm walking over to where it was and showing you where its stump is down in there. And I was out weeding in the morning, everything was fine, and I came out about an hour later and this tree was laying on the ground. So I'll tell you what I suspect happened to the magnolia, and this is just a guess. But in the springtime, we had a microburst come through here, and right where the chairs are here against this fence, there was a big cast iron propane grill that we cooked on. And the nest chair right next to it and the grill were both picked up by that microburst and dropped, teetering right on the edge of our pool. And the grill was picked up and turned upside down, so it landed right on top on the top of it, and it was in pieces. So we had to get rid of it, and the nest chair was just tumbled and landed. Neither one went in the pool, thank God, but the cover was still on at that point anyway. But the the microburst came, if you follow the line from my neighbor's house across here, it came through here, directly through this gate right here, and like I said, picked up the gas grill and the chair. And then if you follow the line into my neighbor's yard across the street, it took out a massive evergreen that was on their front lawn. And behind us, maybe 3 houses diagonally from us, another neighbor lost a really, like a 30-foot tall evergreen, completely toppled out of the ground. So even though this tree had been doing really well this year, I think that it might have gotten damaged from that microburst, and it just didn't manifest itself until we had some pretty good wind yesterday, and then it came right off. So I'm gonna, again, let's see if this resprouts from the base. That's my hope, that it's going to come back and grow from the ground, and then we'll have it here. And if not, we've already been talking about what to replace it with. I don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to come out. He wants an evergreen. He would like another funky, either something contorted or weeping. We do have the big weeping Alaskan cedar right here, which we both love. So maybe something, again, evergreen. He doesn't like when leaves get near the pool, so I get that. So anyway, that if it doesn't, by the end of this season, if it doesn't show any signs of life, then we'll decide what's going to get replanted in there. All right, we're out in our way back, and I've done a couple of videos where I've shown this area. And this area was all, well, it's all spring ephemerals first. There's trillium and wood poppies and Ganodoxa, and I can't even remember what else. But anyway, that's what this is in the early spring. And then these summon substance hostas come in and they fill this whole area. So we came out here, and you can see, if you look in here, something totally flattened them. Something broke off, and we've already cleaned up the bulk of the leaves. I probably took about maybe 30 or 40 big stalks out of here. Something just came in and smashed them. You can see there's some of the broken ones there, a couple more on the ground. And this whole stand right here, like I said, I probably took about 30 huge hosta leaves out of here that were completely smashed down and broken off at the base. And you can see some more in here. Like something just came through here and did big damage, not eating them, just breaking them off. So we know we have a bear that visits, and we're wondering if he came through here and maybe took a little nap. If you have any other guesses as to what it could be, please share. I know I was just over here showing you annuals in this bed, but I thought I'd give you like a wider view of this garden because this garden is planted to be a riot of the most ridiculous colors because it's in full sun. And so this is the only place in the garden where I let just about any color in. So we have daylilies. Most of the daylily that are in here bloom some version of fiery red. And then even though I flagged it to take out, I did incorporate pink phlox, but when I go on the other side, I'll show you that I think I prefer the white, so I'm going to take the pink out. But there's fernleaf coreopsis, another red daylily. There is lance leaf coreopsis, which is the gold little button flowers in the back. And then I do like, I had put some white phlox in here as well, and I actually like the white phlox much better. So I did flag the purple to take it out, and any place that the purple crops up, I can see some there too. I'll probably take it out and put white because I actually like this garden being all these really bright reds and yellows. I think it competes with the sun very well. And on the shed side over here, I have another daylily that's flagged to be moved. It's right here. And I don't think I bought or planted that. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if it was a seedling. It's really, really pretty. I'm going to move that out into that bed as well. It's got its little flag. My living wreath is down here. I don't think I've ever talked about the living wreath, but it usually goes on the shed door. But when it's going to rain, which it's going to tomorrow, I set it down into um, this is a trash can cover, and that holds enough water for this to get watered from below when it rains. So I always come down and pop it in there when it's going to rain. And this other red, I have all my red daylilies, like I have all their names written down, but they're not labeled in the garden itself. And they're not, some plants are interesting enough to me to know the names, and daylily is not one of those plants. But some of, like I like all of these reds for different reasons. This one's very, very little compared to the one right above it. But I think they all look really nice together. And so I'm going to take some divisions of this tall red one to move over into this garden in the fall. And also that one that was flagged that I don't know where it came from, I'll add to this garden in the fall and add, so there will be more red down toward the arbor side because there is none down there right now. My favorite hydrangea is actually a big leaf hydrangea, but it has lace cap flowers, and it's a cross between All Summer Beauty and Lady in Red, and it's called Twist and Shout. And I love the lace cap flowers. This gets very reddish tinged leaves in cold weather. And I did do a video when I pruned all my hydrangea in the springtime. It was June. It was the first week of June, late in the first week of June, maybe close to the 6th or the 7th this year. And this hydrangea was pruned to the ground. There was nothing left standing on this pretty much. I had to cut back so much of it. But you can see how not only is it blooming now, but it's got plenty of buds that are still coming. So this is a great rebloomer. I grow this in 2 different areas. I'll walk over to the other one. I've never ever had a year with this hydrangea not blooming. And I know there are so many new hydrangeas out now that have great ability to bloom on new wood and bloom fast. But this one, even though it's an older cultivar, does that and never ever disappoints. So this is hydrangea twist and shout. Okay, I lied. I have twist and shout growing in 3 areas. This one is newer. It's only been in the ground maybe 2 or 3 years. And still, again, from being pruned down to the ground in June and now blooming. And you can see much more of the dark color in the leaves on this one, that lady in red genetics coming through, and the beautiful flowers. And this thing will just keep pumping out flowers for weeks and weeks. All right, we'll go look at the third one now. All right, this is the original. This is the first time I ever planted twist and shout when I first started experimenting with growing hydrangeas. Now, this sort of illustrates a point that I have, or problem, I should say, growing hydrangeas in my yard. You can see, and we just looked at 2 others, the size of the flowers on this twist and shout. They are at least double the size of the others. And that's because it's getting so much sun. And it really, really does very well getting sun. But you can see the downside of that is it definitely flags during the day. So when it's getting that sun and it's warm like it is today, the leaves definitely flag. So even though the flowers are bigger, and this has just started putting out flowers, this one was also pruned right down to the ground in June, and this has just started to flower. And they are huge, and it will continue for much longer than the others because of the sunlight. Oh, I wonder what happened to that Chamaecyparis. It's like I have the attention span of a gnat, but I'll have to go in and cut that branch off. But anyway, it this one flowers very well because of how much sun it's in, but it definitely does flag in the heat of the day. Right. We're out on the front of my house now, and this is where I have hydrangea, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hydrangea growing here that all flower on the bluer side, because these all are hydrangeas that are sensitive to soil pH in drawing up aluminum. So they all get treated to change the soil pH and with aluminum so they get bluer. And this one is called Tough Stuff Aha. And it has these, it's lace cap again, my favorite. And it has these water lily shaped flowers. And again, this one pruned to the ground in June and is flowering beautifully. And its partner over here, whose flowers are just a little bit more pale blue, beautiful, has just started flowering. You can see there's many buds to come, but it just started opening flowers. So these 2 are the same. They are Tough Stuff Aha. And I actually moved a third one of them that wasn't doing well here maybe last week. So that one will fill out. And if we walk to the side of the apple tree, this is another one that I just moved here because it was unhappy where it was. The one behind it hasn't put on any buds yet. That's an endless summer. And that one for me takes the longest to come into bloom in a bad year, winter-wise. And this definitely was a year that they all suffered. That one was cut back to the ground and it's not even budded up yet. But next to it is a mountain hydrangea called Blue Billow, which is another lace cap. Those stunning blue flowers. You can see the bees love this one. And the last one in this area is just starting to flower again. This is All Summer Beauty. Let me see. And there's flower. This is an old wood. This is one of the few remaining branches that wasn't pruned down. So you can see it's got flower buds on it. And we probably need to get maybe 2 more leaf nodes of growth before the top will start putting out flowers. So this is definitely a later bloomer for me, but once it gets going, this thing is gonna go like crazy. So this is where, again, my blue hydrangeas live, in this little section of my garden, and they're all just, well, blue billow has been going for quite some time and it will keep going, but the other ones are all just starting. So right next to my little blue hydrangeas, which I'm so thrilled, by the way, to be growing these. I've talked about a few times that this is a sandy soil, was a sand pit. So there's not a lot of water holding capability in the soil, and it took a long time to be able to grow something like big leaf or mountain hydrangeas that need very different conditions than this plant, which is Hydrangea paniculata quickfire. So all my original hydrangeas I planted here were paniculata types, because literally I think these things could grow in sidewalk cracks. I'm not sure that they really need any sort of nutrition or water. But this quickfire, I think, is one of the most beautiful. It has beautiful red stems. It gets a reddish tinge to the leaves. You can see we're on the street part of my garden. We're right in front of my house. And then the flowers open white and then quickly burnish and turn mauve, burgundy. They'll get darker and darker. And I don't know if you've noticed while I've had the camera focused on it, but I'll hold still for a second and you can see just how many pollinating insects are flying around here. There are, I'm trying to even look, everything is moving so fast. There are bees, there are honeybees, there are bumblebees, there are wasps, there are blue mud dauber wasps, there are other cricket eating wasps, that digger wasps I can see, oh, there's another digger wasp. Hoverflies. Oh my goodness. It's just, can you see that? It's crazy how many pollinating insects are on this plant right now. So this is quickfire. Again, easy to grow, doesn't need too much of anything. So easy peasy plant to grow. Certainly doesn't need the kind of conditions that either Hydrangea macrophylla or serrata need. I think sandy soil it's perfectly happy in. It certainly doesn't care about water. Very drought tolerant and pollinator favorite for sure. This is Hydrangea paniculata firelight, and this has much taller flowers than quickfire, and they're much whiter when they open. They don't, quickfire, its name implies how quick it turns color. This one takes a lot longer to turn color, so it will stay this beautiful limey white for quite some time and then it will turn. But if you notice, what's missing from this one that we saw on the quickfire was the pollinators. So oddly enough, this one doesn't bring any pollinators in. And this does not surprise me that this one does not. And I showed some video of this last week. This is a smooth hydrangea called Annabelle. And it is not known for being a pollinator favorite, although you do see, I mean, here's a bumblebee right here. It's just a lot harder for them to find the flowers that have any nectar because a lot of the sterile flowers block the way to those fertile flowers where they're going to get any nutrition from. So you see a few, but not as many as you would on something like Haas's Halo, where it's more open and lace cap. But this one always surprises me. That certainly not a pollinator favorite, but beautiful all the same. Out here in the way back, the only hydrangea we grow are paniculata types because it is not good soil back here, and it certainly doesn't have the kind of moisture that big leaf hydrangea or even mountain hydrangea need. So we have a couple of limelights, and this is one of them right here. And this thing is ginormous. It probably stands about, oh, I don't know, close to 10 feet tall. And once those flowers start, you can see this from anywhere in my house or anywhere in the garden because this shrub is so tall. It's been in this garden for a very long time, and it gets pruned back to about maybe 4 feet tall in the springtime. So before this maple shaded much of this back area, it had a friend who's over here who still flowers and is still pretty tall, but is certainly not as tall or floriferous as the one that's in the full sun. This one is in quite a considerable amount of shade. So it doesn't have a lot of foliage at the bottom, but at the top where it gets more sunlight, it will throw out a number of flowers, even in this kind of shade. The other panicle hydrangeas we grow back here are not even budded up yet. Well, no, I guess this one, I just lied. I can see flower buds right there. This one is strawberry vanilla, another older cultivar of hydrangea paniculata. And this isn't that robust of a shrub. It doesn't get very tall. Again, gets pruned back pretty harsh in the springtime. And it blooms on new wood, so it's just starting to form its buds. It's a nice enough plant. I don't know, given all the new introductions of hydrangea paniculata, that I would ever choose this one because there's so many new ones that perform so much better. But, I'm not going to get rid of it. It's fine. The other quick fires in this garden are located over here in the new section of the garden that we planted last year. And they are not, I don't know if they'll flower this year. They're a dwarf quickfire, little quickfire. And even though they look very healthy and they overwintered very well, oops, got a big pokeweed down there. I'm not sure. I don't see any flower buds yet, so maybe we won't get flowering out of this year. Maybe we'll get it next year. Before I sign off today, I'll show you one more set of plants that I started from seed this June. And the first one is this white cornflower called Snowman. And even though it's loaded with buds, I mean, it's just been flowering and flowering, and as long as I've been deadheading it, it just keeps throwing out new flowers. I'm not 100% certain I would grow it again. I guess I expected the flowers to be a little bit bigger. They're tiny, and it's just not that showy of a plant. But I have it planted here in a container with two other plants I started from seed, and one is moonflower, which I have grown in the past and love, and can't wait for this to start blooming, which will be much later in the season. And another one that'll bloom later in the season, and you can just barely see getting going in here. And this is a cypress vine, a little Ipomoea species that has little tiny, this is a white variety, and it will have little tiny white star-shaped flowers, and it's a vine. And this, I found, starts slow, but once this starts putting on growth, you can almost just stand here and watch it grow. So now that we're into the heat of summer, that's probably going to take off very soon, and we'll have white star-shaped cypress vine flowers, the cornflower, and white moon flowers, hopefully on this container by the end of summer. Thanks for watching.